Hello, I am Paul Henault for Simsbury Community Media, and you're watching Community Conversations. We are in studio today and speaking with Margery Winters, and our subject is the Dark Sky Initiative. This is a very important topic for the town, surrounding towns, as well as the state of Connecticut. Before we begin, let me provide a brief background about Margery. Margery and her family moved to Simsbury in 1986. Her professional training is in geology, hydrology, and soils. She has been very active since then in the environmental issues for Simsbury and for our state. She is the chair of Simsbury's Conservation Commission, an Inland and Wetlands Commission, a member of Simsbury's Open Space Commission, president of the Simsbury Land Trust, as well as Associate Director at Roaring Brook Nature Center. Margery has also been featured in numerous SCM programs with subjects such as invasive species, old forest growth, and the Flower Bridge. Margery, welcome to the studio today. I don't know how you have time to do all this kind of stuff and join us, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Dark Sky Initiative, which also we're going to have some slides about seeing stars. Yes. And we're also going to talk about the Connecticut Lights Out Initiative. Yes. So why don't you carry us through that a little bit?
Oh, well, the, light pollution is something that people don't really think about, but it is something that has a big impact on our environment. Mm-hmm. So it's a new topic. The Connecticut Lights Out, or Lights Out Connecticut, is a group that is really spearheading this. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, I agreed to help them by doing presentations around the state. Okay. I had been doing them for the Nature Center, and I thought it was a good tie-in with them.
Right. So. Right. And I saw it at the Simsbury Land Trust board meeting. Margery and I are both on the Simsbury Land Trust, so I saw this and thought it'd be a good topic for us to see. So why don't you take us through some of the slides?
All right. So light is something that we've all evolved with. We're all used to getting up in the morning, going to bed at night, and it's coded into our DNA. It's not only coded into our DNA, it's coded into the DNA of a lot of animals and plants, and all life on Earth is coded into that. And we have cycles. You know, we all know about our circadian rhythm and our hormone cycles. And it's not only us, it's all the animals and wildlife and things. And one of the things at the Nature Center, speaking to children, doing classes for children, one of the things I always love to ask them is, what are the animals that come out at night called? Mm-hmm. And no matter how young they are, they all know they're nocturnal. They can say that word right off the bat. What they can't say is what the animals that come out at the day are. When you ask them, well, what are we called? The best answer I ever got was normal. Normal. Okay. But of course the word is diurnal, and these are the animals that come out during the day. And I tend to think that we do think that we are the normal ones. The other ones that come out at night are the abnormal, because why would you want to be out at night? You can't see anything. Right. So that has, I think, colored a lot of our perceptions of how we view the world. Certainly, you know, we have day shift and night shift for the insects as well, and that's incredibly important. But night is a habitat, and this is something we need to think about. The animals that are out at night need that darkness. They need it to hunt, they need it to find their mates, they need it to find food. And night, they are adapted for it. The animals,
their eyes are adapted to that.
Their eyes are, you can see
very
this,
much so,
this picture of the raccoon. They don't have little flashlights in there. Yeah. They have little mirrors at the back of their eyes that helps reflect what light there is so they can see better at night. And that's one of the ways you can actually tell a nocturnal animal. Even little spiders have eyes that glow in the night. If you shine a flashlight out at night, you see a lot of things that are out there moving around. Yeah. And you know, they have acute hearing, they have acute senses of smell, all sorts of other senses that are more attuned with that nighttime habitat. And so when we add light to their habitat, it disrupts them. Right. And 70% of our mammals are active at night. So, but also that's
a number I didn't realize.
That's
a very high number.
It is a high number, and a lot of there's some scientists think that more and more animals are becoming more nocturnal because they can stay away from us. Since we're such a dominant force in the landscape, they like They like their time alone, sort of like teenagers, who...
Except for the bears in Simsbury, which they're out all the time.
Yeah, they're out because the food's there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what we do. But a lot of our insects, over 60% of our insects our invertebrates are also active at night. Now, most of these things we don't think about because we're asleep.
Right.
We don't
think
give
about
them
it
a
at
moment's
all.
thought, out
Yeah.
of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So, but they're a very important part of the ecosystem. So it's only really with the invention of the light bulb that we've started to really brighten up the night. And we've been through so many iterations on light bulbs, and now we have the LED light bulbs, which are very energy efficient, but very problematic. So.
Yeah, people don't think about that as far as the lights being problematic.
No.
And
All right. So nowadays, because of our night lights at the night, when we look up, we just don't see the stars. There's a lovely story about a power outage in Los Angeles in, I think, 1994, and people were looking up and seeing the stars and seeing the Milky Way, and they were actually calling 9/11, saying, "What was that strange cloud up in the sky?"
What is that strange cloud? Excuse me, that's the Milky Way.
So instead of seeing stars, we are now seeing sky glow, which is coming from all the lights in the city. And it's the larger the city, the larger the sky glow. So nowadays, most of the people do not see the stars. And each year, more and more stars are blinking out because of the light that we're generating here on Earth that is blocking out the light from the stars. So we're just not seeing those stars because of the sky glow. And every year, it's increasing by at least 2%. And it's 2% that we know, but unfortunately the satellites are not picking up the new LED bright white lights. So they're only really picking up... No, they don't. So the increase is even more dramatic than that.
Wow.
So, and here's a map of...
Yeah, I found this a very dramatic slide regarding the evolution over the last 4 decades, 4 or 5 decades.
It is getting harder and harder to see that dark sky because of all the lights that we're using.
Right.
And so where are these lights coming from? Well, the lights are being reflected off all sorts of surfaces. We need light to get around at night. We do have pretty good night vision, but if it's not moonlit and it's a new moon, it's going to be hard getting around. So we need lights to get around from place to place, but we need it targeted where we need it.
Right.
You can see in this picture there's a lighting on the pathway where the man is walking, but some of the lights going into the neighbor's house, a lot's being directed up into the sky and bouncing off clouds. It's especially, you get more sky glow on a cloudy night.
Right, absolutely reflects back down.
That's right. And that's wasted light, that's wasted energy as well.
Right, you really don't need that.
No, so where are we lighting? Well, most of our lights are for the roads. As you fly, I used to live in Chicago. I used to fly into O'Hare and see the big sea of yellow lights down below the sodium lights.
Yeah.
But you can see in this picture, a lot of them are being replaced by the new LED lights, and they give off a different color spectrum, especially a lot of the blue-white lights.
Right, and we'll learn about that a little bit later. Why that's problematic as well.
And you can see here is a lot of it comes from our parking lots. My goodness, you could do needlework in those parking lots. The light is so good. And there's nobody there, but the lights are still on.
They're lit.
The lights are on. Another kind of lighting is what we call what's called vanity lighting. You have to show the people where your house is at night because they didn't see it during the day, I suppose. You can see the public building that's being lit up, but also this house. It's really no purpose for lighting it up other than it's reassuring to us who I think are a little bit afraid of the dark that we can see it at night. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, does anyone really need to see what your house looks like? They can wait a couple more hours until the sun comes up.
A great point.
Yeah, and then light that just spills out of our house. When we have the curtains open, light just comes out because glass does not stop that light from shining out.
Right.
So there are a lot of ways. And now with the new LED lights, it's so easy to put lights into our garden. And I love.
What about the solar lights where you have them? Are they the same one even though they're low?
They are. They're still light. They're still light. And I love the party lights that are going up, which look wonderfully festive. But if you drive by, most of the people that have the party lights up, there is no party going on. For the few nights of the year, you have a party. Yeah, keep your party lights on. But the rest of the year, there is no party. Yeah, there's no party.
Turn it off. Hit the switch.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the things the scientists are finding is there's really no benefit for this light for the wildlife, and it's actually very harmful for birds, mammals, even fish, insects, and all the rest. It's extremely harmful for these animals.
Right, and these are studies that are conducted over long periods of time, right? It's not just a one and done type study.
And there are more studies coming out. What the problem is, scientists are also diurnal, and they would much prefer to do the studies during the day when they're awake. So the scientists are really only just starting to address this issue. But there are a lot. The scientists are starting to think that insect decline. There's a great decline in our insect populations for a whole host of reasons, but one of them might be light pollution, given the fact that over half, 60% of the insects are nocturnal. Having those lights shining in their eyes is very disruptive to their mating, to their where they're going to lay their eggs, where they're going to find food.
Right.
Shelter and all the rest from predators and things like that.
Right, and it gets harder and harder to have open space.
And one of the things that's really, I've been in the garden club world for quite some time, and nobody talks about moths. And yet moths are incredibly important. The scientists are finding out that they're incredibly important for pollinating our flowers, our fruit trees, our crops. But nobody gives them a thought. They've got very bad PR, the moths
Everybody
do.
thinks pollinators are mostly
butterflies
the
and
bees and
yes.
butterflies and everything else. But it's, what is that? I think the slide you're going to show has like 2,400.
This is it. We have an awful lot of moths. And we only have 121 species of butterflies, but we have over 2,000 species of moths. And nature doesn't make moths just
That's an incredible
for fun.
number. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think most people realize that.
No, and I didn't realize it until I started really researching this, and going to doing garden club programs, and I see their surprised faces out there.
Right.
We have given moths very short shrift because we don't see them because we're asleep.
Right.
And
so
and
the
they're just
pollinator
annoying.
effort isn't just for the bees and the butterflies. It's for the other insects as well.
It should be. I'm looking forward to the day when people have welcome to my moth garden signs in their yard.
Moths have a bad reputation because they eat your clothes in the closet.
And the food,
Right.
but they're really, really important. And of course, they do, they are attracted to lights. The new scientific research says they want to keep their backs to that big bright light that's out there. Which they think is the moon, and they're trying to orient themselves. So they fly around trying to, where are we? How we can get from one place to another, and they get stuck around the the light.
So that's why they're circling all the time.
That's why they're circling.
Yeah, okay.
And with the old lights, they used to get incinerated, but with the new LED lights, they don't. But it's especially around the bright white and the blue-white lights that they find irresistible and confusing. They don't do that around the yellow bulbs, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And this is, there's studies that show the farther away you get from the light, the more caterpillars there are. So of course the caterpillars turn into the moths. So right under these especially these bright white lights, there are very few moths, very few caterpillars. The moths are around the light, but the caterpillars are harmed by these.
And this slide that you're showing, it's a one from a UK study?
UK, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So there are more and more studies going on. And I mentioned the caterpillars. The caterpillars are incredibly important, considering how many moths there are. There are a lot of caterpillars. And the caterpillars are incredibly important to our birds, because the moth caterpillars are really the base for feeding the baby birds. They're the favorite, not worms. Moths are the ones that feed the baby birds. And so here we have a picture of a mother chickadee with her caterpillar, and she's going to look and she's going to put that caterpillar in the mouth of the biggest bird. Dad's going to come by a few minutes later. He's going to put a caterpillar in the next biggest mouth, and they're going to work their way down through those hungry mouths. Once the bird gets the caterpillar, is going to go to sleep, and hopefully they'll get to the little tiny mouth before the big mouth bird wakes chicks.
So this is an incredible number that they have to get.
6,000 to 10,000. This is a study by Douglas Talamay, who's an entomologist with the University of Delaware. And the lovely thing about being a professor, he has grad students and students he can send out to count things. So he sent them out to count how many caterpillars it takes to raise one nest of baby birds.
That's amazing.
It's an incredible, and that's just one nest. So if you've got many nests in your yard, they are taking care of those caterpillars. So you don't have to worry that, oh my gosh, I'm going to have so many caterpillars in my yard. They are extremely good at going into a shrub, finding that caterpillar, coming out, and then taking it back. And that's 6,000 to 10,000 caterpillars during a 3-week period. And they have to find them within 50 yards of the nest.
Really?
So if you don't have any bird nests in your yards, you don't have the right plants there for those caterpillars to eat.
That's whole other story about the plants. Yeah, we'll save that for another time. Yeah, we'll save that for another time.
And a very important topic.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of our insect populations are declining, and declining rather rapidly. And there's a whole host of reasons. Some of the neonicotinoids, which are a new class of pesticide that we're using, some of it's habitat loss, but some of it could just be because we're keeping our lights on in around our houses. So as the insects decline, the bird populations are declining too. So that's another problem, because we need the bird populations later on to control the other insect population. Right. So it's all woven together. Right.
It's all the same ecosystem.
Yeah. And again, I said that the old sodium lights were not as bad. They might have been using more energy, but they gave off a softer, yellower light, as opposed to the new LED street lamps, which are giving off this sort of bright white.
Right, which will blind you if you're looking at them.
Which are very bright.
Just like the headlights.
And we have a tendency to think if that more is better, that more light is better, and we'll talk about that. That's not the case, and it's around those white lights that the moths are attracted, and have great problems. So it's really under those light bulbs. And I keep talking about the bright white and the blue lights and the yellow lights. And the wavelength of light is measured by kelvins. And I don't know if any of you have had the same problem going into a store and buying a light bulb now. It's fraught with peril. You have to find the right base. You have to find the right Kelvin. That was never something we had to think about before. The right lumens. It's not easy buying. I used to say I had job security at the Nature Center because I was the only one who knew how to change out all the light bulbs at the Nature Center. It's more complicated than it ever was. Yeah. But it's the yellow lights that are better for the wildlife. The brighter and the bluer lights that are more harmful. It's in the 6,000 to 8,000 or 6,000 range. Those are the lights they use in the jewelry stores to make the diamonds sparkle. But we really don't need them outside at night. Right. We don't have anything that we need sparkling at night. And it's the more blue light that you have in the lights, the more harmful it is to wildlife. But it's also harmful to us. We're all told to turn off our screens at night, or turn them down, because that does affect our health. And that's what.
And if your neighbor's got a bright light going, it's coming right through.
In. That's
even
called,
if you've got the shades down, it's coming through.
It's coming, and you're aware of it. And that's called light trespass. You can actually do something about that. You can ask them not to. But the American Medical Association has found a direct correlation between having that light, especially the blue-white light, and our endocrine system. So a lot of hormonal-related diseases are related to having a lot of light at night. Surprisingly, things like diabetes, breast cancer, and other things that are associated with having too much light at night.
Really?
People who are on night shifts that have to, exist under a lot of artificial light at night have higher incidence of these diseases. So that's so there's a human health component to it.
So it's all put together, and a lot of the impact on the birds is not only during the day, it's during the night as well.
During the night, even though a lot of the birds are diurnal, they come out at day, they like to migrate at night. And it's in April now, we are in the midst of bird migration season for a lot of birds that are coming from Central and South America and the southern parts of the United States. They're migrating up to our area, but also further up north to the boreal forests of Canada, because that's where the insects are going to be. That's where they're going to feed their young. So they're migrating at night because there are fewer thermals, there are fewer predators, and they are hopefully navigating by the stars. And it's during a very short period of time in the spring.
They can't see the stars. It's tough to navigate.
They can't see the stars, and that's a huge thing. This is one of the biggest natural phenomena that occur that we are not aware of, because it's happening in the dark over our heads at night. We don't see it, we don't think about it, but this is what's happening right now. There's some wonderful websites where you can track it, but otherwise we wouldn't know what was going on.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is
Very interesting. Right, there's the map of the route.
This is the fall migration route. That's the reverse for the spring migration route.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're going for. They're going for those caterpillars. They're going for those insects.
Right. 3 weeks in the spring.
3 weeks in the spring. Right. They're making that journey during that. So it's really those 3 weeks in the spring. They're really critical for keeping our lights out.
Yeah.
So we're not distracting the birds. And then there's a longer period in the fall. Unfortunately, when the birds encounter a well-lit city, they get very confused. They lose, especially with the sky glow, they lose track of the stars. They might end up flying around a building. They collide with the windows, and quite often the custodial staff finds during these time periods they find a lot of dead birds at the base.
Right, right.
So this was especially a big problem at the McCormick Center, which is a big civic center.
In Chicago.
Right on Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah.
Used to pass it on my way home every night from work, and it was always lit up very well. But the custodial staff, would find an awful lot of birds there. And one night it was only a couple of years ago, on a cloudy, rainy night, when the birds weren't able to see the stars, they were distracted by all the lights that were on the McCormick Center, and over 1,000 birds.
Right, and this is recent. This was 2023.
This is recent.
Correct.
And
right, 1,000 birds.
1,000 birds.
Yeah.
Just didn't make it on the rest of the migration. They have enough to deal with on their migration.
Right.
This is just an extra burden. And what they were finding was that the custodial staff, again, noticed that on the nights when there was a big trade show or convention going on and all the lights were on, that's when they had the most birds. They found most birds dead on the ground.
Wow.
And so they started to think, they've contacted the Audubon, they're talking to people who knew about birds, and said, well, what if we just turn off the lights, turn off half the lights, turn the lights down? And what they found was that they could reduce the bird mortality rate by 60% by turning off half the lights.
Wow.
And it was especially during those times, during those high-risk days in the spring and the fall. Those were the most critical times to keep the lights out. And they could find, they reduced it a tremendous amount in this spring and the fall.
During those time frames,
especially,
right?
I think 11 times during the spring and 6 times during the fall season. They could reduce the deaths to the birds during those periods of time.
Kudos to the staff.
Absolutely. It was them, they were noticing that this carnage was happening.
Yeah.
Same thing down in Galveston, Texas. They were having vanity lighting on the outside of the building so that people could see how lovely their building looked. In case
at 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock
right.
when no one was around. And again, 400 birds died. And they figured that was a problem. That the easiest solution of all, it's lovely when you have an environmental solution to a problem. The solution was turn off the lights, and they haven't had that problem since.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Simsbury, Connecticut. What can we do? What can the residents do? There's a program, Lights Out Connecticut. Talk about that a little bit.
Lights Out Connecticut was a group that I learned about and volunteered for. They were working with the state legislature to see if we can't turn out the lights in the state building, at least during those critical periods of the for April to May. The beginning of April to the end of May during the spring migration, and from August, the middle of August to the middle of November during the fall migration season. And they pitched it to the state legislature saying, we really don't need these lights on for our state buildings. What if we turn them off during those periods? You could save a lot of money. Well, fortunately, the state legislature said, well, why only limit it to that period of time? Why not do it the rest of the year?
Okay,
which
that's good.
Better than they even thought they would.
Yeah.
They would be able to get. The only thing that's still being lit is the state dome. Because we have to see that at night.
I guess we have to see that at night, right?
See that.
Yeah, like we don't know it's there.
Good. So this has been their main concern is about birds. Their Connecticut Lights Out works with the Audubon societies, especially the Monocatunk Audubon Society has been very involved. So they are trying to get the word out that we could do this in our own homes. We don't have to wait. We could do this in our towns. We don't really need legislation to turn out a light, but we could. If we
what about some of the other towns like Bridgeport and Waterbury, New Britain?
There are a handful of towns that are working on this. and putting in regulations, dark sky compliant regulations into their zoning regs. We're trying to do that in Simsbury. The Conservation Commission is trying to put forth model regs to the zoning. The Connecticut Lights Out, or Lights Out Connecticut, I should say, has model regs that are available to everyone on their website, so every town can adopt this, because it's one of these things we have to do it together. If Simsbury does it and no one else does it, we're not going to make that much difference, but everybody has a role to play.
Right, right. What about some of these large apartment complexes that are going in? What's management saying there regarding their parking lots and security lights, things like that?
As Conservation Commission, we don't have the regulations yet, but we're trying to encourage them to dim their lights at night, to maybe it's possible to turn off lights, especially lights that are leaking from the building. There are a lot of things, and we have the technology now. We have dimmers and timers and motion sensors and all the rest. So we have all sorts of things that we can do. The technology is there.
Yeah.
And we can even change the color of the lights.
Right.
So,
very good.
But I also want to say, the birds are one thing, but we have fireflies. I look forward to fireflies, and so this extends the season too. Our peak firefly season is mid-June to mid-July.
Yeah. Right.
And so lights, they're very, very affected by lights. They are signaling to their mates with light, and when we throw on the back porch light or whatever, that just completely throws them off. So consider thinking about regulating your lighting around your house during those periods. Because even just the flash of the headlights or the light coming from your house is enough to disrupt the signaling for these fireflies, and they're
really? Okay.
very much on the decline. And I would miss not seeing the fireflies. They're showing.
I know. We used to see them in my backyard. We would see a lot of them, and now it seems like it's been going downhill.
So part of that's how we manage our lawn. I know part of my backyard is a meadow, and they like to hide in there. My neighbors' lawns are more mowed, and I don't see as many over there. So they need a place to hide during the day, as well as having the darkness at night to put on their light show.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So but the long and the short of it is there's nothing about our night lighting that is beneficial at all to wildlife.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't really need it.
No. And I think this is, so what we need to do is start thinking about how we can develop them, be a little brave, not be so afraid of the dark. You really have to light it up to make it normal.
Okay.
Turn out the lights at night. That's, save money and save the habitat for the wildlife.
Right.
Who we do share this world with. So there are various things that we can do. This is from the International Dark Sky Organization.
Oh, there's an international as well?
This has to be an international thing. If you look at the global, light pollution, it's quite staggering. Other countries like Singapore and some of the, they are very bright, make New York look dim compared to us. They're using a lot of light at night.
Right.
But the key things are, use light when and where and if you need it. So if you don't need it, turn it off.
Yeah.
Use the yellow warmer colors of the light, and also keep it low and shield it so it's not facing up. Those are the main things to think about when we're lighting at night.
Okay.
So just some examples. You can see in the picture the globe light. It's shining everywhere. It's shining up into the trees. We're not up there. We don't fly, so we're down on the ground. So the ideal one is to have the light exactly where you need it, down on the ground. Right.
Keep it low.
Keep it low and keep it pointed down. The other thing is that we mentioned this before. You can see in this picture with the white light, their little tiny moths flying around the light bulbs down there. When you have the yellow bulbs, they're not attracted. So that's good. They do not. When you're out walking around, you're not.
So the warmer colors and low are better.
And they're better. And frankly, the older I get, the more I like the yellow colors too. Everyone looks better under the yellow light than the harsh white light.
Harsh bright white.
This is what we go for. Anything under 3,000 Kelvin. 3,000 Kelvin are the warm whites, and if you can get the warm light, the 2,000 or the 2,700 Kelvins, even better. But if you it's sometimes harder to find them, but that's another thing. If we start demanding them, they will make them.
Right, right.
Yeah, but they think we want the jewelry, sparkly, bright white.
Right, right. No, I don't think so.
Not so good. Places like Tucson, Arizona, people used to go there to see the Milky Way, and the more people that move out there, the more lights, more night light, and they're realizing they're losing the thing that attracted people to the area.
Right.
So the city is doing a lot of smart city lighting initiatives. They are dimming the lights at night. So and you can see the picture one, the 90% brightness.
Right. And are they doing things through their zoning for residential areas as well?
And new construction always, they require dark sky compliant lighting, and educating the public about the impact that this is having on their ability to attract tourists to the area, but also on their own health and the health of the environment. So, even you can see in this picture, 30% brightness at night is still good. Even though we don't have great night vision, we have good enough night vision.
Right, right.
And we don't need bright lights at night because our eyes adapt to the darkness of night. And when we suddenly have a bright light put in our face.
Especially if you're going by on a street at 40, 50 miles an hour, you don't need it.
No. And here you can see, the idea is that we are safer when we're brightly lit. We can see the danger around us. Again, this goes to our fear of the dark. But actually, the police have found that the vandalism is higher in areas where there is light. And the graffiti is, not surprisingly, more problematic because
they can see what they're doing.
You have to have light to do it.
Right.
So you can't do graffiti in the dark. And if you are using your own light while doing graffiti, you're noticed. Because in that dark, your little light is going to shine out, so it's more easily spotted. So you're not safer in a brightly lit place. And here's a picture from the International Dark Sky. You can see there's this big floodlight. People love to have their floodlights on at night because they'll see what's going on. Well, actually, no. Because of the glare of that light, it's not shielded.
You can't see.
You can't see the man that's hiding in that between that fence. He's there, but you can't see him.
Right.
So it doesn't make you safer. And actually, it's the on again, off again nature of light. So if it is on a motion sensor, you're much more likely to notice when the light comes popping on. You're going to say something's going on outside. As if it's on all the time, you don't pay any attention to it.
Right.
It's the same way the Chinese had crickets. And they kept the cricket. The cricket would chirp all night. It's unless something came by and disturbed them, and then they'd go quiet, and everyone would wake up because of the absence of.
They would know. Yeah. And the motion sensors, they're very inexpensive now.
They're very inexpensive. You can put things on a timer if you know you're coming home at a certain time of day every day. You can have the light welcoming you home.
Right.
But then turn it off after you're not. Most of us are not welcoming guests at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
And if you do, you can put on a motion sensor so that they can find their way. And those motion sensors are very sensitive. And they'll provide the light when you need it.
Right.
But if you don't need it, it can stay off.
Right. Leave it off.
Save money. I know my sister lives in England, and her street lights go off at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock because most people are home. After that, you're using your car lights, or if you need to be out walking, you take your own flashlight. It makes more sense than keeping the lights constantly on. And some of you have to question the purpose of some of the lights that we even have in Simsbury. We don't have many, but some of them are like, do we really need that?
Yeah, no, you don't need that.
So one of the things is, we could do a light audit in town to see, are some of the lights even necessary? There are really low-tech solutions, like closing your drapes. We all have a lot of windows. The lights, we can use the lights on inside, but it doesn't have to spill out if you just close the curtains or blinds.
It's a simple solution.
It's a very simple
it's a very simple solution. Yeah.
And then again, putting in those yellow light bulbs so that when, especially at your porch lights, when you have guests over, that they're not greeted by a swarm of flying insects at night and have to go through that gauntlet when they leave again after you've attracted them all to your house with the bright white light.
Right.
So put in the yellow, and this is
I think you can still get those.
This is an LED light bulb, so you can get these, and it looks lovely and warm. It's more like a candle glow than a police interrogation. And again, turning off the lights. There's so few environmental problems that we can solve with the switch of a flick of a switch.
Right.
So it when you don't need it, just
It's pretty simple.
turn it off.
Pretty simple,
The whole
yeah.
house doesn't have to be lit up.
Right.
Light the rooms you're in, then turn the light. It's not like we have to go and clean kerosene lanterns and trim the wicks and it's not hard. Just turn off a light bulb. So that's you can also take the Lights Out pledge on the Connecticut Dark Sky Connecticut Lights Out Connecticut website. And that's just another way to motivate yourself, saying I'm going to turn out my lights.
Right.
And they have lots of information to sort of along the same lines of how to why to do this and how to do this.
Right.
And then we just ask you to contact our zoning commission to say that this is something that's important to us all, so that as we look out on a nice cloudless night, we can see the stars and see what's actually going on out there, because it is part of our heritage. We grew up as people that go out and saw the awe of the night sky, and anyone who's been out in the areas where there is dark sky and you suddenly look up and you see the magnitude of stars that are out there.
Right.
But every year they're blinking out more and more, and our children will not be seeing that. They'll be calling on 911.
It's very noticeable if you've flown any time at night.
Yeah.
Particularly and you're coming in to Bradley and you're looking, and it's even if you're flying over New York, you could say, wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you come in to Bradley and it's lights everywhere.
Yes. No, we have, I understand why we need, those lights and all the rest, but at certain times of the day, the lights just are not doing anything.
Right.
And again, they're using a lot of energy to produce. So they're not serving us at all well.
No. Well, Margery, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for giving me the
Yeah,
opportunity.
I think this is great. I think this is very informative, and not only for Simsbury and the towns around us, but also for the state of Connecticut as well. So that was great. So I appreciate you joining us
Thank you very
today.
much.
Yeah, this is great. So. And thank you to our audience for watching Simsbury Community Media. This edition of Community Conversations, I think, was very informative. You can also see the entire slide presentation out on our website, which we'll post where you can go see that. And please remember, Simsbury Community Media is a nonprofit public access station, and we can't survive without your support. So if you like our content, please consider donating today. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through
local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.